Hey everyone, as we get ready to teach this quarter, I wanted to offer a video for you on the differences between Zoom and Confer Now, or Confer Zoom for your classes. And it just came up as a reminder to me. I was meeting with a faculty member recently and we were talking about the advantages and disadvantages of each. So we'll go through what Confer Now and Zoom each are. And so you see on the screen right now the two different versions. On the top you have your typical Zoom when you're setting up a meeting. Below that, you have Confer Now or Confer Zoom. And I say Confer Now or Confer Zoom because the name of what this Zoom tool is seems to be constantly changing, and it's a little confusing. The other thing to mention on that is even though Confer Now or Confer Zoom is hosting meetings for you, it always takes you to your native app. So in all cases, if you don't have the Pro version or the licensed version of your Zoom, you need to have that definitely as an instructor to teach your class. And so in order to get that, one of the easy ways is to go to my one-pager. To find the one-pager, you would simply go to ltccteachingandlearning.com, one word, and then you'll see at the top here, one-pagers. All of these are details related to Eve teaching, getting started in Canvas, working on your syllabus, and so forth. The one I recommend is click on this one here, which is Zoom for Distance Education and Eve. And once you do that, this PDF will open up. Each of these is hot linked, so click on any of these to get the training that you want. And the idea behind the one-pagers is to more quickly gear you towards a resource. There was some feedback that people wanted that, so this is one opportunity to really get quick resources just based on a one-page PDF. I'll be adding one here for the training today, so look out for that. It'll appear here after I'm done with this. But to sign up for Zoom, click on the Sign Up tab, and this will take you to Confer Zoom. All you have to do is put your information in, put your first and last name. Very key, do not use a Hotmail or a Gmail. You have to put in your LTCC email address. Once you do that, put in Lake Tahoe Community College, your title, choose faculty, and hit sign up. In a little bit of time, you should get a response back. Most people tell me it takes a matter of hours, not really days. Once you do that, when you log into your Zoom, you'll click on your avatar, your picture if you have one. If you don't, you can add that. The right-hand corner of your web application in Zoom, if you see licensed or pro, something like this, then you're in good shape. That means you have the account that you need. And the other way to know that is when you scroll down here, you'll see that you can have a capacity of 300 in your meeting, and it'll also say license here. So if it says license pro business account, you're in good shape. If it says basic account, you definitely need to change that. So that's kind of step one. And again, please go to this PDF to get all the information that you might need about Zoom and Confer Now or Confer Zoom. So now we get to the question of, well, how do we host a meeting for our students? So what we're really talking about today is trying to develop ways to have real-time virtual meetings with students. So you can use Zoom or you can use Confer Now, Confer Zoom. Again, I'm using both titles because they keep changing the title. I hope they pick one in the future and stick with it. Very confusing. But what you could do is, as you've been doing traditionally, step one would be to use Zoom. If you want to just use Zoom and not mess with the Confer Now or Confer Zoom tool. So I would click on my Meetings tab, and then I would schedule a new meeting. I could title this something, and I'm teaching a class, Anthro 106. I could type that in, and then I would simply put a meeting description if I want that. I could then go to the calendar and choose the date when it meets. So if I want it to meet on Fridays at 11 a.m. for 1 hour, okay, that's great. Now I have two options here. I could set up a separate meeting for each class meeting, but to make it even easier, you could just make it a recurring meeting. So this is the same type of calendar tool that you're going to see on your Outlook or other calendars. A recurring meeting means simply it's repeating at a certain number of recurrences on a day of the week, every month, whatever you want. So what you could do then is decide, probably wouldn't have daily, you could choose weekly. So if I want my meeting to meet every single Friday until a certain period of time, I would choose this option. And again, I can just choose it here, and I can choose 3 days out of the week. So very easy to set that up. Now, what you could do is you could automatically put in the end of the quarter. So we're teaching right now in fall 2020. This will change if you're watching this video in later quarters. Well, what I could do is say I want my last meeting then to be on Friday right before finals. And then I hit that, and it will simply generate all those meetings for me. Or I might know that I want 11 meetings, and I could just choose 11 or 10, let's say, if I don't want to meet in the 11th week with my students. Once I do that, I would hit save, and we'll do this as a sample. I can go back and delete this. If you make a mistake, you can delete it. I recommend that the easiest thing to do is probably just copy this link here, this URL. If you want to copy the whole invite, it will include all this information, which might be a lot for your students to handle. So I would just simply highlight this text. If I have my keyboard, I could hit Command or Control C to copy that. I'll do that right now. Now let's go back to our class. And so I will just choose my current class here at the college. I'll log on to Canvas. So again, what I'm doing right now is setting up the Zoom option. I haven't even used Confer now. Now, I think the easiest thing to do, my recommendation would be to set these meetings up in your modules. If you don't have weekly modules, do it the way that you would approach it. But for me, I have weekly modules. And I actually have my Zoom set up already. I'll show you what they look like. We'll be meeting every Friday. And I'm actually holding off on giving my students the dates for the upcoming ones and the links. I want to check with their schedules because this is a DE class. I'm being flexible. These are not required Zoom meetings. They're optional to help students out with tutorials to do mini lectures. So I'm holding the first one on a Friday, somewhat late. If someone works at 6 o'clock, they won't be able to attend. So thus I'm going to do a poll in week 1 of the class to ask my students when's the best time to meet. Well, what I could do then is from scratch, I could set up my Zoom meetings. Remember, I just copy that link. So I would add here I could call it, weekly Zoom or whatever. We'll just call it weekly meetings. I don't want to confuse myself because I'm not actually going to leave this in the class. This is just demoing it for you today. So as I would typically have a Canvas content page, I would click on that. I'll hit the edit button, and then you'll recall I copied it, so I'll just type some text. It could be more descriptive. And then I'm going to just take my keyboard and I'm going to hit paste there. You could also use your mouse. You could right-hand click and do that, or if you have a trackpad like I have here, you could hit paste. Once I do that, I hit save and publish. And then what the students do, they go back to your module, and for their weekly meeting, they will click on that tab, and it's as easy as can be. You just say, click this link. They click the link, and even if they don't have their account set up, anyone can click on a link like this, and it'll take them. It won't be as good of a version, but it'll take them to the meeting. And there you go. So we're live. So that is version 1 for you. You can just use Zoom as a tool to set up a meeting. It can do the recurrence, so you can have one link for the entire quarter. You could also go back and do that by having, instead of using the recurrence tool, you could have separate links for each class. And maybe you do that because you want to clarify it for students. Either way, if you have recording set up, it'll record the meeting, you have access to it, and so forth. So in my mind, it really doesn't matter if you do a recurrence like I showed you here, or you do a separate meeting. So let's end this meeting in Zoom, and let's do option 2. And that's using inside of Canvas the Confer Now tool or Confer Zoom tool. It's really confusing. And just to prove this to you, look, if you click on sign up, it's called Confer Zoom. When we go to the thing in Canvas, it's called Confer Now, and it's also Confer Now here in the menu. So I didn't invent that. Trevor didn't invent that. It's what it is. So we'll just call it Confer Now / Confer Zoom. So the way to set this up in your class, I'm actually not using it, but make sure that this is set up this way. So you have to go to Settings. When you go to Settings, click on the third tab over on Navigation. You want to see Confer Now here. If it's over here, we'll just do it here to show you, then it's not going to appear on your left tabs. Keep in mind anything that's up here appears on your menu, anything down here doesn't appear on your menu, with the exception of key navigation tabs that you will use, like your quizzes, rubrics, collaborations, may appear here, but will have a grayed out I with a slash. And that's saying that it appears for you as an instructor, but it will not show up for your students. That's just a default in Canvas. So I have to drag Confer Now up here. I can put it wherever I like. Again, you can always change the order here. You always have to hit Save at the bottom. Once you do that, you will see it's populated in your menu when you click the Home button. So I click on the Confer Now tool or Confer Zoom tool. What this does is, again, it's creating, all this is a calendar app inside of Canvas. It doesn't actually host the meeting for you. It takes you always externally to Zoom, hence that requirement that you have to have a pro or licensed Zoom account. So this is pretty easy to use. I don't love the navigation here. I worked with a faculty member today setting this up, and I found it pretty easy to navigate. I don't use it myself. What I would want to do is either, if I do a quick launch, I could immediately launch and students could log on here, a Zoom session, and it starts immediately. And you'll see this log in here to Zoom. Again, it's taking me external to Zoom. It always hosts us through Confer Zoom. And I'm on Zoom. It looks exactly the same as the version that we saw, hosting directly through Zoom, not using the app through Canvas. So I will quit that. And just to show you that it is an app in Canvas, if you click on the Confer Now tab, which is what we're on, you'll see this unique URL up here, and that's actually important. We're going to use that in just a second if you want to put this in your modules. So we're back on the main place to launch Confer Now, Confer Zoom. So that was the quick launch. If I want to host meetings regularly, I click on the Schedule button. So click on Schedule. And then what I would do is I would give it a name, a description, whatever I would want that to be. And then this is where I would choose dates and times and recurrence. So just like I did in Zoom, I would choose my first meeting. So if I wanted to be on a Friday, I would pick a Friday. It'll then show you on a calendar based on where you are in the calendar. This is your calendar navigation. It's a little wonky. Sometimes it will show, like it's showing here Wednesday, September 2nd. But down here, it's actually showing the week of. So it's showing you the current date. So I find it a little odd just how it shows the current date at the top and then other dates down here, but whatever. This is the time. So if I wanted at a particular time, I would pick the time. I could choose the duration. Now, at that point, I could do recurrence. If it's just one meeting, it's single. If I want a daily recurrence, just like I did in Zoom, if it's highlighted, those days are when the recurrence takes place. If I want a weekly recurrence, it could be same thing, couple days out of a week. So maybe I just want Fridays. At that point, I could then choose when it ends. And in this case, you don't have that option like you do in Zoom, end after 10 occurrences. You don't have that. You just have to choose an ending date. So if I want it to end in December around finals, I would say December 4th. I would hit save. And then once I do that, and I'll delete these later, once I do that, I'll go through my calendar and I will see every week, I can move along here, and every week I'll see that same meeting scheduled. The student would click on that meeting and then they just basically launch that meeting. So this is totally fine if you want to use Confer Now / Confer Zoom to do everything. They had some issues in spring quarter. I think those have been since resolved. Not a huge deal. The nice thing about it is the event recordings will always appear inside of the Confer Now / Zoom tool. So it might make it easy for your students to find it. You can also use it for booking appointments if you like, or you could just do that in another way and indicate when your office hours are, and then students could either log on at a regular time using the traditional Zoom, set up that meeting, do a spontaneous meeting like I do sometimes with my students, or an actual scheduled weekly office hour that they would log on using either Confer Now Zoom or your traditional Zoom. Now, the one thing that I would recommend is somewhere in your syllabus, just like we did in the module to tell the students how to log on, we would want to put that. So what I could do is go back to my modules page here in my class for fall, and let me pull up that weekly meeting page, and we'll change it from the Zoom traditional Zoom to Confer Now/Confer Zoom. So I will delete this. Now, in order to get this next step, let's open up a second occurrence in my same class. I'm going to need that link from Confer Now, Confer Zoom. I just wish I had changed the damn name so we don't have to say slash every time. Anyway, okay, so I want to go back to my Confer Now tab, Confer Zoom tab. And what I want to do here is to go to my browser here, take this unique URL, and as I did before, I will hit Command or whatever command action key in C. I have now that URL that's unique, and then what I'll do is go back to my class page and I will paste that in as I did before. I'll hit save, and then let's go back to our modules so we could see where this is happening. And actually I made a mistake. This will be good to fix. This is actually not hyperlinked. All I have to do to fix that is I didn't hit the return key. Canvas defaults this way, so if you don't see a color or an underline, then you know it's not hyperlinked. I just put my cursor at the end of that line, I hit return, magically it's hyperlinked. And I'll go back to that and you'll see it. So now my students will click on that module, they click it, it's going to take them then to the actual class page for the schedule. Then what they'll do is they'll click on it there and it won't say prepare, I'm the host, it'll say join. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. But whatever you're doing, I really recommend if you're using option 1, which is the Zoom official tool, or if you're using option 2, which is the Confer Now/Confer Zoom tool, I recommend having an indication somewhere in your class, on your syllabus, or in a module page that says, here's how you join the weekly meeting, because otherwise students aren't going to know how to join. The other option is you could say in that same module, click on the left tab and find Confer Now, and then the student would click on that. It would take them to all the scheduled meetings. I personally don't like to have that step just because they have to find it in the navigation menu. So I like to have it in my module page, and then the students are able to go and click on the module that says weekly meeting. So again, you have two options to use. If you use traditional Zoom, you set up your meetings there. If you use Confer Now, Confer Zoom, you set them up there. Both are equally fine. It doesn't really matter. I don't have a preference. I like to use Zoom because I find that the navigation with the menus and the graphics are a little easier for me, but you're welcome to use either tool. They both work fine. So if you have any other questions, reach out to me. We can make sure that we use the tools in Zoom in the best ways possible such that you have the most effective synchronous meetings for your students here in your Canvas class at Lake Tahoe Community College.